So you have a book and a writing utensil and you're ready to get started. Congratulations. First, let me warn you, there's something both wonderful and terrifying about making your first mark in your book, but it's time. Setup. When I get a new journal, the first thing I do every time is number all of the pages in pencil. I prefer to use pencil because then I can erase them if the page is getting too cluttered, and I've been known to accidentally number them wrong and then have to erase and fix page after page. Pencil keeps me from ruining a new notebook before it's even begun, and numbering the pages gets rid of a little of that I don't want to mess up my new notebook feeling. I just do the odd numbers and I put them at the bottom outside edge. I normally skip numbering page 1, 3, and sometimes even 5. I never write on page 1 or 2. It doesn't lay quite right, and I think it looks better blank. And by not writing on it, at least if I mess up every other page after it, I still have one perfect page left. I mark the middle of every single page in my Moleskines. I like to work in 2 columns, so after I number all of my pages, I use a pencil to mark the halfway point. I don't write a single entry until this is done on every single page. On page 3, I draw a big monogram. You could draw your family crest or write in the year or month or your first or last initial too. Some people write a dedication or a book blessing. On the next page, I like to write in a yearly calendar. It's time-consuming, so printing a calendar and gluing one in might be a better option for you, but I love the way it looks hand-done. I find myself referring to this page often and like to add in the full and new moons because it looks cool. You could star holidays and heart birthdays to make this page more personal. After the year at a glance page, you have a few options. You can jump right into a diary entry. You can set up a table of contents or index. You can write down your life goals for while you're using your book, or you can add a planning or tracking spread. It all depends on how you want to use your book and how it will best serve you. I use a macro-micro approach in my books. The calendar on page 5 is the widest 10,000-foot view. Then I move into a calendex, a simple month spread that combines trackers, page numbers, and space for planning. The calendex on the following pages are my bird's eye view. There's more detail, but still not too much. It gives a general idea. A 240-page Moleskine will last me about 3 months, so that's page 6 through 8. I always do these in pencil because a lot can change in 3 months and I want to leave room for change. Next comes the weekly spreads. A weekly spread has a lot more nitty-gritty details. There are so many options for this. Mine often have half-hour blocks from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. so I can plan out my days in detail. Besides the date and day of the week, I'll also include the high and low temperature and a weather icon to each day's section. It helps me when planning my outfits and activities because we like to be outside as much as possible. If you like to plan out in the future, you can put these things all in the beginning of your book, but I don't recommend this to beginners. Often it's best to plan a week at a time so you can experiment with new layouts until you find one that works best for you. The smallest micro view would be the daily diary entries, which obviously go into much more detail about the moments of my day. Diary entries can and should start with a consistently formatted date. If you're going to write several times a day or write in different places, it might be interesting to add a timestamp and location to your entries as well. After I set up the calendex and possibly a weekly spread or 13, I like to create a visual index in the back of my book. I have a very visual memory, and it's really helpful to be able to see thumbnails of all of the pages. I love the way it looks, and it's so useful. Don't be scared. In all of this, remember that it's what works best for you that's best. If you don't like any of my suggestions, or if they don't work for you, please do what works best for you. Journaling can transform literally every area of your life, and it would be a shame if you missed out because the way I do it isn't the way that you should do it. If you're scared to mess up your journal or can't make any habits stick, except for perhaps the habit of buying blank books and never writing in them, or only writing in a page or two before abandoning them, I want you to know that I've been there too. If you're scared of messing up, use pencil. All of my pages, except daily diary entries, are done in pencil first. Plans change, and doing them in pencil allows me to erase things and fix them instead of having big cross-outs or tear-outs. Also know that if you do make a mistake, there is ways to fix or hide them without making them more obvious. More on that later. Do not fear the blank page. Let it encourage you instead of discouraging you. Imperfections are beautiful. Often artists will paint their canvas a bright color right off so they don't have a big blank canvas staring at them. Again, use a pencil. You can always erase it later. If you're having a hard time getting the habit to stick, just like with any other habit, schedule a little bit of time to write into your day. Maybe 10 minutes right when you wake up, or 5 minutes while you're waiting for the shower to heat up or coffee pot to start percolating. I love journaling at night before bed. I write down everything that happened that day and my thoughts on it. It's a great way to get everything out of my head and onto paper. Noting down little interactions I had and new people's names helps me remember everything better, even if I never go over it again. You don't have to invest a lot of time journaling for the experience to be meaningful. Even writing a sentence a day will start to add up and become transformative. When starting the routine, it's also helpful to journal in the same place. Having a familiar nook helps me slip right into the mindset that I need in order to achieve my dreams. What if you hate your handwriting? Luckily, keeping a daily journal can help you improve your penmanship. It's important that I remind you that your handwriting is part of you, and it's a part of you that future generations and even your future self will love, even if you hate it now. There's a whole science behind a person's penmanship and their personality, which we'll talk about more in the next lesson. But for now, just know that there are so many benefits that will come with actually writing things out, especially in cursive. But if you do want your writing to look better, my top tip is slow down. And also, don't imbibe before you scribe. I can always tell when I've had a glass of wine before writing, and even though my content is usually okay, my handwriting is loose and noticeably different. If you're using the pencil then pen method, I highly recommend inking one spread at a time. Ink like items at the same time. My usual order is all titles, all numbers, all symbols, and finally all body text. It makes everything look so uniform and clean, and if you get interrupted, there's a better chance the spread will still look uniform. I will wait 2 months to pen in my Calendex so I can do the whole spread at the same time. It takes a lot of patience, but it's worth it, especially since I plan on keeping these journals forever. The downside of the pencil then pen method is that it's easy not to go over the pencil and pen, especially when the spread wasn't much used. This just means that there will be an assortment of pencil and ink pages in your book, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. A really good tip when using pen is don't cross anything out. Strike-throughs look so bad, and the eye is drawn to them, making a little mistake seem so obvious. Instead, I just use a slash. I might be in the middle of the word and realize I'm spelling it wrong, or realize that another word would describe the situation better, so I just put a little slash and write what I meant. Mistakes virtually disappear, and it's still really easy to read. It looks much better than whiteout. The best thing to do is write. Don't censor yourself. Don't try to write fancy. Don't use big words that you don't use in your everyday vocabulary unless you're actually trying to improve your vocabulary. Don't worry about who may read your words one day. Just write down what you're thinking. Layouts. One of the great parts about getting a blank book instead of using a day planner with pre-printed layouts is that you can design your own layouts. Instead of having to fit your life into predetermined boxes, you can create your own and make a beautiful, bespoke book in the process. There are so many beautiful spreads online for inspiration, but the most important thing is to tailor the spread to you. Nobody is the same, and nobody's journal should be the same either. Otherwise, you'd be better off just getting a planner. Layouts are a way to lay out information in a way that is easy to consume without getting overwhelmed. I already mentioned a few different layouts in my micro-macro approach to journaling, but there are so many other great layouts I use too. A dot grid journal makes it super easy to keep everything lined up in uniform. I love reading, so I have a book review template I use a lot, and it's so fun to flip through and see the books that I've read and my thoughts on them. And since I've been using the same spread for a couple of years, it's easy to spot them. Because all of the book review layouts are the same, I immediately know what I'm looking at and where all of the information is located. I use a gift list layout around Christmas time, so I can easily keep track of what we got people and also what we received, so we can be sure to send proper thank yous. Yes, you could put this all on a sticky note, but they get lost, and then it's like you never wrote them down at all. And it's pretty interesting to see what the holidays were like year after year, too. Over all of the years, I've learned that it's really important to keep your layouts super simple. When they get too cluttered, they get confusing. Plus, I'm a busy person and I don't have hours to spend planning. Always remember, KISS. KISS. Keep it super simple. Layouts can be used for anything. You can make a ledger to track where your money is going. You can create a fancy meal plan. You can track your workouts or your sleep quality or your grades. The possibilities are endless. A final note. If you ran out and got my favorite Moleskine, you might be wondering what to write for in case of loss, please return to, and reward. It's on the very first page. I write my phone number because if some stranger finds my journal and decides to read it, I really don't want them to know my name so they can look me up on social media too. A phone number is plenty of information for them to get the journal back to me. For reward, I usually put something funny like good karma or my eternal gratitude, but sometimes I'll write a monetary value from $20 to $50.